My name's Richard Thomas. I farm with my father in North Herefordshire, just outside a little village called Risbury. We farm beef and sheep predominantly, pedigree Hereford cattle, which is Dad's passion. Romney ewes, or 3/4 Romney ewes, and we've got a little bit of apple cider fruit and a little bit of arable, which gets fed back to the cattle, and stewardship agreements as well. And then a couple of sort of, I wouldn't say diversifications, but like the agroforestry behind me, a couple of other little things going on as well. I went to a grazing meeting at a local farmer's farm 10 years ago, I can't remember exactly, with a guy called Charlie Morgan from just over the border into Wales. And he showed this series of slides about a guy who'd split an 8-acre field and grown twice as much grass. And before that, we were set stock in the whole farm. So not quite, put them in one field for the whole year, but we might be moving every month or every two. And we would always run out of grass in August, and I find really silly talking about it, but I didn't know any different. I can't believe there wasn't any grass. So I went to that meeting, and I sort of think, how are we going to farm? And it was just simple as putting an electric fence up down the field. And actually we did that, and we had some really good outcomes. We grew our lambs better, we grew more grass, and you thought, oh Christ, there's something to this. And then subsequently I met a guy called James Daniel and joined the precision grazing group, which I'm still in now. That's I think we're in year 5 now. And so there's a whole ruck of farms around the country where we're trying to allow a period of rest and recovery, to allow the plants to express themselves, to have deeper rooting, to hold up more water, to grow more grass, basically, make more money. Let's not make no bones about it, but we don't use any nitrogen here anymore. And summer of 18, not to sound too cocky, but it was quite brown. A lot of the farms around here were quite brown because it was quite dry. This farm was pretty green. And the same in 2022. Yeah, we had to sell a few animals and move a few things around, but we were a lot greener than some of the other places around. So by grazing for ideally a maximum of 3 days in the growing season, not quite so important in the winter, but we're on mostly 1 to 2 day shifts. The sheep or the cattle will eat the grass down, but they won't be able to eat the regrow, because as soon as that grass comes back up and starts to grow again, which will happen on day 4 or 5, possibly sooner if you're in April when it's growing like mad, then you'll restrict that plant's ability, that grass plant's ability to grow again, and then you're stopping your overall production for the year. So we keep moving the animals on, keep moving them on, and we have an adequate rest period. It might be 30 days in April, it might be 45, 50 days in sort of early summer or in the autumn, and perhaps longer in the summer, and 120 days in the winter, 150 we can manage it, to try and give that grass enough time to recover, to grow more grass, to make more money, but also we're providing habitat, because you've got taller grass and you'll get some plants going to seed, and they'll be flowering, and you'll have butterflies and the other insects and all that kind of thing. And in some places where it might go a bit tufty, you've got your your small mammals and those sort of things as well. So and then of course the bird life comes along with that. So we're trying to just have a mix of habitats, but predominantly the rotational grazing and that short on-off period with a decent period of rest, that makes the whole thing work. The farm is mapped, it's sort of not imaginarily, but I've got it mapped on my phone, on the computer in the office, into hectare blocks. So I roughly know, I've got GPS on my phone, I roughly know if I put a fence from there to there, I've got a hectare block. I can measure the grass, or I can measure it with my eye. I can work out, okay, so we've got X many kilos to feed X many animals for X many days. But the point is that plan's adaptive. If it doesn't rain for a month, then you've got to be prepared, you're going to change your plan. And then there's all sorts of things you can do, like selling underproductive animals or selling store animals or whatever, but you've got to be prepared to be flexible. There's no recipe. Any recipe is a recipe for disaster, So it's not easy, and it does take planning, but if you want to tackle the challenges that modern farming is throwing at us with the increased costs and ag inflation, as we call it, and the changing environment, changing climate, the weather patterns, all that sort of thing, and then the policy that's coming along behind that, like the phosphates in the rivers and holding on to soil and all that sort of thing. We've got to build resilient systems, and it's not easy, but it is possible. And I'm not saying I'm getting it right all the time, but sometimes we get it right, and it's really good. And when it doesn't, we think, okay, well, we'll plan and see what we can learn and do it better next time. So these are our spring calving cows. This field is 11 acres, and I think I put 120 bales laid out here in a sort of a grid pattern then, if you like, for 120 days-ish, however it worked out. We started early November, I think, when the calves were still at foot, and there was a few heifers, and then they were weaned before Christmas, and then we just left with these 20 cows. So, and that that's what's here, and they'll be finished in another week or 10 days, and they'll be in. Ballpark, it's about a third of the cost to have a cow outside than it is in the shed. So I think it's around about £1 a day outside, ballpark, and inside, around £3 a day. If you multiply that up over the number of animals for the number of days, I think we've saved in the region of 5,000 this year by not housing these animals. Obviously, they will come in now in the next week or so, and then they'll calve in March, and then they'll go back out as soon as we can, back out onto grass that we've obviously saved from last year. So, just trying to run a low-cost system, and if you set your plans up and you set yourself up to succeed, it can work really well. One of the criticisms that might come then is that you're poaching the soil, you're causing runoff. What's the mitigation? What are you doing to protect your resources? I would argue by moving the fence twice a day when it's very wet, setting ourselves up on a relatively flat field. Yes, it's a bit of a bank, but it's relatively flat field. Those risks are actually very low, and we've got a wild bird seed strip down to the bottom side of the field, so that's going to hold up any soil. And literally there isn't any soil moving anyway. This field was left. We baled it in August, and we left the bales here, and we added some more to it, and then so we left the regrow come up. And all right, the frost has taken a bit of the grass away, but you can see the green behind us. It's quite a lot of grass there. So there's obviously quite a lot of roots in underneath as well. So the cattle are doing a little bit of trampling. We're pushing a little bit of that organic matter that they don't eat and the hay down into the soil, which is going to be building up our resilience for going forward, to have more organic matter, to infiltrate more water, to hold more water. So this is the Holly Brook that rises towards Breedenbury, comes out through the farm, which actually, good bit of knowledge, is one of the cleanest brooks in the north of the county, consistently measured by the local people, CPRE. It's only citizen science, but I think there's a lot of merit in what they're doing and consistency in what they're measuring. So that's really good. 10 or a dozen or so years ago, there was no fence here, and you can see where the cattle would have come down through and drunk out the brook, and we didn't have a water system beyond this brook. So anything that could drink would drink in the brook, and then anything that couldn't, it was either a bowser or it was an arable field. So we had a Wire and Husk Foundation grant. We fenced off the brook, as I say, 10 or 12 years ago, and it's fixing itself, isn't it? This is all silt the brook's left deposited here, and then the alder growing back and various other plants and grasses. When I was younger, I would have been, maybe from ignorance or what, I don't know, but very much like, there's branches in the brook, there's logs in the brook, I think we've got to get out here with a chainsaw, clean it all up, get it all out, get the water away. And I don't think we need to do that now. I'm not saying we should never pull a branch out of the brook, and there's different issues there. But if I can slow the water down here a little bit, my neighbour's house has been flooded, I think it was flooded in 2007. That house is in the Doomsday Book, and I'm not sure if it's ever been flooded before then. So that's a very old property. And maybe it has been in over time, I don't know, but it doesn't happen regularly. Well, I don't want it to happen again. You'll never prove it, whether it's something that we or anybody else does, but if we could just slow that water down a little bit, more importantly, infiltrate it on our own land and hold it on our own land for when we do need it, maybe we'll stop, a house like that getting flooded. And if we can replicate that right across the catchment, that'd be really cool. And I think the stat, it's slightly arbitrary maybe, but if we can increase our organic matter by 1% per hectare, we can hold an extra 20,000 litres of water per hectare. Ballpark, ping me if I'm wrong, but it's something like that. 20,000 litres of water is a lot of water, and we've got a lot of hectares in our catchment with a lot of nutrients in it, which we can use. We can grow more grass, we can, grow more animals. the ruminant part of our grassland ecosystem is really important. So it's like win, 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 win. You know, if we add all those things up together, you know, it's not simple, but by making small changes and trying to be better farmers, better stewards, more profitable farmers, I think we can benefit everybody.